And we are live. Punctual.
Are we? Are we?
Very punctual. We're a little
Are you
earlier than
sure?
usual. Yes, yes, yes. So our guest today, Alan,
Yeah.
it's
Cricket orders.
it's
li-
former Judas Priest. I'm not sure how much on the KK's priest. Les Binks priesthood. Just a man who's been around the block, a professional, someone drummers look up to over the years, a legacy, the one and only. Is that a good build up? Les Binks.
Hi,
How'd you like
everybody.
that? Was that
like
good?
That's good, man. Yeah.
like the
No
Motorhead shirt.
complaints.
A little early today, but why not? So, Les, got we could talk as much as you like, as long as you like. It's all good. We know that there's the KK's priest, and I guess everybody was kind of a little. I guess the word is disappointed. We'll start off with that, and we'll go back into your history too. Everyone was a little sad, right? Because everybody was really looking forward to you being part of the project. And I know you told me like your wrist, you had some issues with your wrist. Maybe you could just give everybody a little more of an explanation as to what happened.
Sure. Well, basically, this all came about from a one-off show that we did up in Wolverhampton
Yes.
at KK Steel Mill with Ripper, and it really was that. It was supposed to be a one-off thing, and I think KK enjoyed being out there on stage again, and he got the itch to go back on the road and to get out and play to the fans again. And so he contacted me again after that, shortly afterwards, and asked me if I would like to make it a more regular band. And I agreed to that. Thought it'd be a good idea. And he said, well, we'll have to do some fresh material, get an album together, and then do a tour. And he set up management and everything else, and everything was looking rosy. So that was the plan. Let's do an album, and then go straight on tour.
Mm-hmm.
And this was back in we did that show in November 2019. So it's we're in 2001 now. And
Time
so
flies.
of course, the recording sessions were set up, and I had a bit of a nasty accident and injured my wrists at the time, which was really bad timing. And I didn't want to delay the whole thing because I knew he was anxious to get out on the road. So I suggested that they use another drummer, so that the album could carry on and be done, because Ripper was flying over to do his vocals and so on and so forth. And luckily he managed to do that before the lockdown came in, and travel between America and the UK became rather a no-no. So I thought I just got a nasty sprain, but it turned out to be, after we had an X-ray, turned out to like a little hairline fracture. So it took quite a few months to heal properly, and I'm sort of more or less back to full fitness again. So that was quite some time ago, obviously. And then, of course, the COVID thing happened, which screwed everything up. Not only for the plans that we had to go on tour, but everybody, the whole music industry, the West End shows, it's devastated the musicians' livelihoods, the road crews, the whole, lighting people, everyone connected to live music entertainment. It's just, well, everybody knows it's been a total disaster.
Yeah.
I spoke to KK recently, and he tells me it's unlikely that there'll be any shows until 2022, which is next year. So nothing's going to happen for some time. He's asked me if I would still like to be involved, and I said, yeah. How are we going to work that out? And So there may be something we can work out where I do like a guest spot or something. But as I said, no actual tour dates have been announced, and so everything's in that sort of uncertain stage at the moment, and because nobody knows how this pandemic is going to work out. I mean, the big problem that bands have when it comes to touring, if they're planning to do a world tour, is that, like for instance, in this country, in the UK, we seem to have, at the moment anyway, with the rollout of the vaccines, quite a large percentage of the population have now been vaccinated. And they are planning to open up live music venues again from the 21st of June.
Wow.
Now the government here are being very cautious because we've had, you know, two, maybe three lockdowns already, and it's put a lot of people out of work, and not just in music, but in everything. A lot of businesses have folded. So that now that the vaccines are out and everyone's that's been offered it, has had it, I've had it, had 2 shots of the Pfizer vaccine, and I had no bad reactions to it at all. A lot of people are worried about taking it. I think crazy if you don't, but it allows people to get back into social settings again, such as we have to have at live concerts. So then, unfortunately, this new Indian variant comes along, and our government was far too slow to when the scenes of what was happening in India currently, people dropping like flies over with this new variant, which they call a double mutant variant. It's supposed to be even incredibly more infectious than the previous variants. So that is now in the UK, unfortunately. They didn't ban travel to India and back early enough, so it managed to find its way in. People traveling back and forth, and at the moment it's still contained, and they're doing everything they can to make sure it doesn't spread. But I think younger people are more likely to get it if they're not vaccinated. So the big thing that's going to screw everybody's plans up again is if a mutant version of this COVID-19 virus comes along that can infect people who've been vaccinated, but one that can find its way around the vaccine. And if that happens, we're all back to square one again.
Yeah, when we saw the light of day, we might be back to square one. So
yeah, we do have the vaccine, but because this virus is very clever and keeps changing the little protein spikes on it, the immune system may not recognize the latest version that comes along. And so it might be able to infect people even though they have antibodies, because the original vaccine that we're all getting was based on the very first version of the virus, So these new mutant versions will look different, and the immune system may not be able to recognize these new versions. But the only way we can find out the answer to that is wait and see. See how. At the moment, the scientists and the medical experts are analyzing this new double mutant version that's come from India, and they're trying to work out how more infectious it is, and whether it can find its way around the vaccine or not. And it's a bit too early at this stage to until they've done all their investigations to see what the situation is. And if it turns out that it spreads regardless of the vaccination program, then that could screw up the live venues being opened on the 21st of June. So who knows? This is what the kind of world we're living in these days, isn't it? You know, there's so much uncertainty. You can't say we're going to be doing this on this date, because who knows what's going to happen between now and then.
So you were saying, because we're trying to piece. Jimmy had some interviews with Casey, some excellent interviews. We read his book. We got Rob's book, and we're just trying to fit it together. You said like he got a little bit interested. He did a one-off show, and then it kind of spiked. This kind of interest, and maybe a tour, maybe even an album. What was the general attitude, do you think, with KK? With it, he really want to go out full throttle, or he just got sick of being at home, wanted to get back into it?
I think I first sort of established contact with KK back in 2017, and at that point he was still quite heavily involved with this golf course thing that he was working on. And I did suggest to him then, I said we should do something together, and I think because of all the commitments he had with that at the time, he wasn't focusing on music then. But that's all changed now. So, and I think Judas Priest were trying to do a major tour to celebrate 50 years of the being together. And it would have been good if they'd invited KK to take part in that. I thought that would have been
and you as well. And you as well.
Well, and Ripper, I don't know, but
sure.
It was for a long time hemming and hawing. Is this going to happen? Is it not going to happen? And it turns out that they didn't want to. They didn't want to do that. So I think that after that show we did together, and I think he did a guest spot at Bloodstock as well with Ross the Boss. I think that reconnected him with his fans and gave him the urge to get out and play again. I'm sure we'll be out there doing it at some point. It's just when, I have no information regarding tour dates or anything like that, because with the pandemic, normally when a management sets up a tour, it's a world tour, and so you're going to do so many dates in this country, then fly to the next one, do so many dates there, and after the next one, do so many dates, and so on and so forth. But the problem is that the situation is different in every country regarding and so for instance, Brazil, there was a new variant of the virus that came from Brazil, and that was one of the countries we were supposed to go to do some shows in Rio, so the flights have been totally disrupted. World travel, is non-existent. I live quite near. I live in London, and I live quite close to Heathrow Airport, and you'd always hear planes flying overhead. Because I'm quite close near the airport. There's every few minutes there's another plane going over, and suddenly that just stopped. No flights.
Yeah.
And
you can sleep better at night.
Yeah. The airline industry has been devastated, and they've had to lay off a lot of staff. And even now, today, the 17th, our government is trying to unlock down in gradual stages this time, because they don't want to take it all at once and then end up having to go back into lockdown again because the virus surges, takes off again, which is a sensible way to do it, I think.
Sure.
Today is quite an important day because the pubs have opened again.
Oh,
Hallelujah.
okay.
There you go. We're done.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to get out there yet, but I'll fix
Because you're
that
too busy
before.
doing the second most important thing is being on the show.
Absolutely, yeah. But I'll be in the pub at some point this week. Don't worry. They've had a hard time,
Of course.
and a lot of them probably won't survive,
Yeah.
and if we have to go, if things go pear-shaped a second time, and some version of this virus causes major problems again, then we have to go into yet another lockdown. How can businesses survive that? It's killing everybody's business.
Les, let me ask you this, because everybody's dying to know, and I mean, and this is how I started it off. I mean, are you officially in the band, like the KK's Priest, or you're kind of, or you're not certain?
Well, I have my own band, right?
Yeah, that we know. Yes.
Yeah, and and Ripper has his own thing. He does this 3 tremors thing, and
Yep.
Yes.
he's got his fingers in a lot of pies. He's always gigging. He's always busy.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually got a few selective gigs lined up with my own band.
It's amazing.
From the end of July, beginning of August, somewhere around there. Because there are some venues that are trying to operate with restricting the number of people and social distancing and all that, but that means that the venue is operating at a tiny fraction of its full capacity, so they can't make the same amount. They can't do the same business that they would normally do, and I didn't want to go out and do shows to a half full venue,
Right.
So if things are not disrupted by some new variant of this virus between now and the 21st of June, then I'll be out doing it again with my own band around the end of July, August, something like that. But I'm only accepting a handful of shows,
Is that in the UK? Only in the UK?
Only in the UK.
Okay.
Yeah, because I don't know what the situation. I know the
Oh.
situation has been quite bad in France.
Yeah.
It
keeps it simpler. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
At least you know what you're dealing with in the restrictions in that country.
It goes back to what I said earlier. The situation is different in each country.
Yeah.
So you can only accept, work in the country that is relatively safe and that you can play to a decent sized audience.
So let's talk a little bit about your band. So what, are you? It's strictly Judas Priest covers, or do you have your own material, or?
Well, I've worked with so many different musicians over the years, and this quite often when I'm working with in other situations, and somebody finds out who's on drums, they come up and they say, "Oh, play some Priest stuff," And of course, the guys I'm working with, haven't learned any of that stuff. They don't know any of it, And then every year there's a thing that happens in Great Yarmouth, which is in Norfolk, called Legends of Rock.
Oh.
And they have at least a 4-day event, that is. And they have lots of different bands on. And I was contacted and asked to do that. And what I do the Priest material from my era in the band. And I thought that could be good, you know. I hadn't played those songs in many years, you know. And so I contacted some of the musicians that I thought, guitar players, first off, that I thought would be able to handle that and pull it off. So I have a couple of really good guitar players I'm very happy with. I had a bass player and a singer. And we got together and we rehearsed all the material from my era. I didn't want to go beyond that, you know. So it's 70s Priest, you know, because I joined the band when the band signed up to CBS Columbia. They did their first album, which was Sin After Sin. Now, I didn't play on Sin After Sin, that was Simon Phillips. But I did the tour. I joined to do the tour to promote the sales of that album. So I played that stuff live. And then, of course, we went into the studio together and we did this Stained Class album. And I co-wrote Beyond the Realms of Death with.
I know. Preparing for this interview, that's what I read. That's one of the, you know, that's the song off of this album almost, right? So that was a huge deal.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah. Actually, it wasn't. We had rehearsed all the other songs, all the other material, and because at the time, you know, the guys were still living up around the Birmingham area, and I was the only guy living in London, so I had to travel up to Birmingham. Sorry, for rehearsals, and when I got home, I thought all the songs are very up tempo. And I thought it'd be nice somewhere in the set to take it down a bit.
Right.
And have something that starts off with acoustic guitars and a ballad basically that moves into a big heavy riff section. So I made a little home demo of what turned out to be Beyond the Realms. And when I went back up to Birmingham to rehearse, I played a tape to them of that song. And I thought it was better for Rob to write the lyrics because he has a particular style of writing songs. And I wanted to maintain that continuity with the rest of the material. So Rob went away, came back, said, I've got the title, Beyond the Realms of Death. So that's how it came about.
You also did you opened up for Rush on the Sin After Sin tour?
Sorry, say again.
You opened up for Rush, the band.
Oh,
Rush,
yeah.
On the Sin After Sin, you opened up for Rush, Led Zeppelin. Was that tour?
That was on the first tour we did of America. We opened for Zeppelin at Oakland Coliseum.
Yeah.
When they had that big Stonehenge stage set.
Ah.
Yeah.
Alan's favorite.
Yeah. Well, every time I think of it now, I think of Spinal Tap. You know.
Yeah. Right.
They
or Black Sabbath, Born Again.
Yeah. Yeah. And
what was it? What was it like opening up for Rush?
Well, I wasn't familiar with Rush's material at that time. That was an earlier part of their career. And we had been on first, so I was standing at the side of the stage watching their show. And I only caught a short portion of the show. But I noticed all these big banks of Marshall stacks that they had on stage, which looked very impressive, you know. But when I stood at the side of the stage, I could see that behind the Marshall stacks, there was a a Fender Twin Reverb mic'd up. And that's what the guitar player, yeah.
Big Alex Lifeson.
So the guitar player was actually playing through a Fender Twin Reverb, but all the Marshall stacks were there just for show.
That was a lot of cases back then. Well, what about the drumming? Neil Peart's playing there. What'd you think about the drumming? Did you have an opinion?
Great. I was so sad to hear the news of him passing away, but he was a fantastic drummer, very well respected. What can I say? One of the best.
Yeah.
So when you came into the band, they had gone through different drummers, and Simon Phillips plays on Sin After Sin. Did you want to, you just stuck with your style, or you wanted to do a little bit more what Simon was doing, or was there any, how did you just go about, with the music or that tour even? Did you find you just made your own style, or you had to copy somebody else?
Well, I had to learn the arrangements of the songs. That wasn't going to change. But every drummer is different.
Right.
As it happens, Simon and I have very much the same musical influences. The way that Simon plays, he uses his left hand on the hi-hat as opposed to crossing over.
Oh, okay.
And two people that we were both into back in the 70s was Billy Cobham with the Mahavishnu Orchestra, who played that way, still does, and Lonnie White with Chick Corea's Return to Forever. So they were like jazz fusion bands with rock influences as well, but incredible players. And Simon's quite into that jazz fusion type of playing, which he does with his own band. And so our heads were quite similar in that direct, in what we listened to. I was into, when I started off playing, I grew up listening to Bonzo, John Bonham with Zeppelin, and Ian Pace with Deep Purple.
Yeah.
Who else in the rock field? Cozy was I liked Cozy's playing as well, Cozy Powell. But I listened to a whole wide variety of musical genres, and got to know players who like Steve Gadd.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah.
Harvey Mason, and Lenny White, Billy Cobham, people from that jazz and funk side of things, And I found I could utilize some of that stuff in the metal stuff I was playing. So there are little, if you listen to this, so a few little subtle elements of those influences that creep in here and there. If you listen to the albums that I played on, I don't think that was the case with the drummers that followed me.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
I mean, Dave Holland was a lot more just laying down the groove,
4/4.
Yeah.
And Scott is more into the fast bass drum stuff. Yeah, very into the sort of speed side of things.
Right.
So they've had quite a lot of drummers when you think about it, because when I joined, they'd already gone through 3. The first album, Rock and Roller, had John Hinch on it.
Yeah.
who I just learned sadly passed away at the age of 73.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then they had a guy called Alan Moore who played on Sad Wings of Destiny. Then Simon came to me as a session to do the Sin After Sin. And then I did the next three.
And then Dave was there forever, and then they got Scott and maintained Scott all these years. Probably the drummer's been in the band the most.
He is, yeah.
Yeah.
He's I'm getting a gold watch.
So, there's been different.
Key to the bathroom.
For the reasons why you left. I mean, there's different stories. It was because of money, or the fashion. You weren't into the leather look, or there was overplaying, or like you said, your style didn't kind of fit into where they were going with the music 4/4. So what we read this and everybody else's version, but what's Les Binks' version for leaving Priest?
Right. Okay. Money. Or lack of it. Lack of it.
Or lack of it is probably more precise.
I was excuse me. I was in a different situation than the other guys in the band. I wasn't signed to the record company. And when it came to the live album, Unleashed in the East, the management company thought I should do it for free. And that album went platinum. I'd sold all the previous albums, and management didn't want to pay me for it. Crazy.
Did you get any money at all
I
from that album?
I had to fight and struggle to get anything for it. But obviously that soured relationships, and made it impossible for me to carry on.
You're not getting paid.
Yeah. Well,
so what was the reasoning, Les, for that? Why wouldn't they want to pay you? I mean, you're in a band, you got 3 albums, you're not going to do a live one, and
you ask them. I couldn't figure that one out either.
Especially when you finally got somebody solidified behind the drums. Finally, you find your guy, and crazy.
Well,
the wacky world of rock and roll, Alan. The wacky world of rock and roll.
Yeah. I think they thought. I think the manager thought that as the album was recorded while we were on tour in Japan, and I was being paid for the tour, they could use the recordings without paying me for the release of the album.
Oh, okay.
But it doesn't work like that, as you know. You see, when musicians go into a recording studio to make an album or whatever, they usually arrange what they're going to get out of it if they're not signed to the record label. Obviously, if they're signed to the record label, they're going to make royalties off the sale of that album. But my situation was different, and so I was like the session guy, and that was normally I would go in, have a meeting with the management when we were going into a recording studio, and I would work out a deal for payment for that album. And it's easy to do that when you're going into a recording studio and you're in England. But we were on tour, and I wasn't consulted about any kind of recording while we were touring. So there was no pre-arrangement made for what how I was going to be remunerated for that. And it was how I found out was I had a new drum kit supplied by Pearl, who I was endorsing at the time, and they delivered the kit to the venue we were playing at. So I had to go down with my drum tech in the afternoon to get it all set up and tune it. It was a little brand new. And while I was doing that, I noticed there was a 24-track mobile studio at the back of the building, and there were engineers bringing cables in and setting extra mics up to record. So the band's then manager was a guy called Mike Dolan, who they got rid of finally because he was ripping everybody off.
Nobody was getting paid.
Well, not what they should have been. And he was with us on the tour in Tokyo. And I said to him, I said, Mike, what's happening about the recording? You know, because we haven't discussed making a live record. And he said, oh, don't worry about it, Les. It's only for Sony.
Don't worry about it.
It's only for CBS, Sony's sake, you know. Yeah. He said, if we want to do anything with it, we'll talk about it later, you know.
Yeah.
So we flew straight from Japan to the USA, and we toured the USA for about 3 months. Came back to England, and we had a 2-week tour of the UK. And we did a show, I think it was probably the last show I did with them, at a Dublin, a stadium in Dublin, along with Status Quo and a few other bands I can't remember now. And then we took a break, and you know, everybody was burnt out after all that. Well, you know,
traveling.
We didn't actually vary the set much. You know, we were playing the same set pretty much every night, and that can get a bit tedious after a while. You know, getting some fresh stuff into the set. But I was the only member of the band that worked with other musicians outside of the band. So when we came off the road, I'd ring up all my session contacts in London, let them know that I'm around and available, and I'd be working in the studios in other situations with other musicians until a band wanted to either rehearse and make a new album or go back on tour. So this is when I got a call from their manager, Mike Dolan, and he said, "Can you come onto the office? And we want to discuss the band's next move." You know, so I said, "Sure." So I came in, and he said to me, he said, "The band's down at Ringo's studio, Startling Studios in Ascot, listening to the tapes from Japan, the live stuff from Japan." And he said, "We've had a lot of requests," he said, "from fans asking when is the band going to put out a live album?" And he said, "We think this could be it." This was the first time they worked with Tom Allen as producer.
Good old Tom, yeah.
I never met the guy because I was never invited to the studio to have a listen, which I thought was a bit weird.
They didn't want you to know about it.
Yeah. So I began to get the them and us situation, you know. I felt I was being treated quite differently because, you know, so I said, well, that's fine. Just pay me the same as you paid me for the last album. And he said to me, you know, the band's in debt at the moment. He said, we think it'd be a nice gesture on your behalf if you were to waive your fees on this occasion.
Did he waive his?
That was my response. I said, are you going to waive your management?
Well, no, they never waive their fees.
No.
And can you tell me how I'm going to pay my bills if I'm not making any money? you know.
Incredible.
Well, we're discussing you, Les. We're not discussing me. That's what he's saying.
You know, this was the 70s, and it was very common for rip-off cutthroat managers that took advantage of naive young musicians who were more into being rock stars and making music and into their music than they were business people. You know, so they used that to their naiveness to exploit that and rip them off. I mean, Don Arden.
Oh, we don't want to go there.
Notorious.
So in other words, you're on Stained Glass, and you got your fee. You know, you got your session fee, right? Next album, you got your session fee, but when the live album comes out, there was no session fee, or you did manage to get it at the end.
Well, you know, I would go in and arrange payment with the managements before we actually went in the studio, because I would spend as much time in the studio as was necessary to get the results that we wanted to get. Yep. And a lot of the time we were in, the Stained Glass album, we recorded at Chippy Norton Studios, which is up in the Cotswolds. It's a little country village up there, and this building was converted into a studio, and it had living accommodation. So we actually stayed there while we were working on the album. And whereas the follow-up album, which was Hell Bent for Leather on your side of the pond,
and Killing Machine,
it was Killing Machine in the UK.
It still wouldn't work today.
Yeah. We had to change it in America because of there's always somebody goes crazy and shoots a lot of people, you know, because of American gun laws.
Yeah.
And there'd been a big somebody went crazy at a school and shot a lot of people.
Still happening.
Just as the album was due for release. And so the record company thought that Killing Machine was probably a bit of a sensitive title.
Yeah, we're not having any of that.
Yeah, so they changed it and they called it Hell Bent for Leather, which is one of the other tracks on the album.
Are there any other songs from Stained Glass and Hell Bent for Leather or Killing Machine that you contributed to that sort of you didn't really get your credit for?
Well, I think the way people record today is quite different to how they did. Recording studios and recording over the years. If you go back to the 50s and rock and roll with Elvis and Sun Studios in Memphis, everybody played live in the studio, and everything was mono and stereo. We didn't have multi-track recording, and all that developed over the years. I think Sgt. Pepper was only made on a 4-track.
Yeah, that's right.
So you have to keep bouncing tracks down to create more space to add the next thing on. So what we would do when we made those albums was we would go in a rehearsal studio, and each member of the band would present ideas for songs. I mean, for instance, Exciter on Stained Glass as a drum intro, and that came about from me just messing about at a sound check. You know, I played something like that just off the top of my head, and Glenn's ears picked up when he heard it. And he said, "Oh, let's play that again, you know." And then he came in with a little guitar riff, you know. And So that's how some songs develop, just out of a jam. And then you take them away and you develop them later on, and ends up on an album. And when we all got together, regardless of whose song it was or who's initiated it, everybody had their own input to it. But with a lot of bands, not everyone gets credited. I mean, even Lennon and McCartney, sometimes it would be mainly one or the other who wrote the song,
right?
But it was credited to both of them.
And George Martin, when he took the songs, orchestration and everything, he never got credit for anything. It was always Lennon and McCartney. And
well, he was the fifth Beatle, wasn't he? Really?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, he played was it Celeste or something? On what track was it? In my life, John Lennon song.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's a whole piano thing was played. I think it was played on a Celeste,
okay.
Which George Martin played.
Yeah.
And it's a really nice melodic structure as well. Adds a lot to the song. So I don't think he got credited for it. It's Lennon McCartney song.
I guess was there any other song other than Beyond the Realms of Death that you kind of put a little more? Okay, Exciter, it's obvious because there's that drum, the drum intro, right? But is there any other song that you maybe contributed melody wise or riff wise that sort of you put in a little more than you should have got a little more credit that you deserved?
Well, I never asked for any more credit because if somebody comes up with the idea for a song,
mm-hmm.
and you throw in maybe a suggestion here and there, it's still their song,
Yeah.
And so, and also, I was the new boy in the band back then, and I didn't want to say, well, I'm going to write this and I'm going to write that, and you got it was Glenn and KK and Rob who were the main writing team in the band, and I was keen to write more stuff. Had I been in the band longer, I definitely would have come up with more material. But there has to be space on an album, and if the guys come up with a whole bunch of songs that's going to fill an album, then you've got to find a space for your song on it, and you got to convince them that it's right for the band. And the other way that artists make money, obviously, is from the publishing rights to their songs.
Absolutely.
And the publishing rights that I had with Beyond the Realms of Death were ripped off by the management. They make all the money. I don't get a penny.
Story.
I don't get a penny for that.
So you've never gotten a penny for Beyond the Realms of Death to this day?
No.
What the heck's going on in this world?
Well, exactly. Now you understand why I left.
Okay, so just one question now. Back in the 80s, there was that unfortunate incident with two youths in the United States, and they tried committing suicide, and this song was under question, and you were never called in.
No,
I never
it wasn't
saw
this song. It wasn't Beyond the Realms of Death.
No, I thought. Oh no, sorry.
No.
That's right. It's the other one off of.
It was later on.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the court case?
Yes, the court case.
The court case was.
Well, the two boys who.
Yeah.
Well, I was out of the band by the time that hit the headlines.
Somebody out there, tell me which song it was again.
I thought it was that one.
It was. I think it was Better by You, Better Than Me, or something.
Yes, it was.
Which was actually a Spooky Tooth song.
Well, yeah, that's a cover to a song.
That's
exactly.
the-
Because every time every time we went into the studio to make an album, CBS would, their A&R people would be looking for a single off the album. And they would make suggestions. What about doing a version of this, this song?
Yeah. Diamonds and Rust. And
yeah. Well, Diamonds and Rust was a Joan Baez song.
yeah,
That's right. Yeah.
No one would think of Joan Baez and Judas Priest in the same, completely different style of artist.
Nazareth with Joni Mitchell and This Flight Tonight, another example.
Yeah. That was Simon played on that one, on the Sin After Sin album. I played it on the live version, Unleashed in the East. But that was one. Then when we did Stay in Class, they put forward the idea of doing Better By You, or Better, that Spooky Tooth song, yeah. So and I quite liked the song. Everybody quite liked the song. So we gave it our own treatment. We came up with a new arrangement for it, and played it in the Judas Priest way, and made it our own. And then on the next album, they suggested
Take on the World.
The Green Manalishi.
Green Manalishi.
Peter Green,
yes,
which was Fleetwood Mac.
Which is amazing. What a greatest version. Oh, my Lord.
That's a great version.
And when we listened to it, I always loved Peter Green, and so did the rest of the guys in the band. Fantastic guitar player. And I remember going to see him in Belfast. The original Fleetwood Mac. And it was a fantastic show. They were an incredible band live. And
whose idea was it for Green Manalishi?
Sorry?
Whose idea was it to cover the song?
Well, again, as I say, it was the record company.
Oh, it was a record company.
Yeah,
it wasn't like a Rob said, "Hey guys, I got this idea. Let's cover Fleetwood Mac."
It was all the cover songs that we did. The songs that we did.
It was always management. The guys who don't want to pay anybody.
They thought because they were looking for a single, and they thought these songs. Yeah. And as far as I know, none of them ever were released as singles. When we did the Hellbound, I'll call it the Hellbound for Leather album, from your point of view. The first single that was released from that album, it wasn't Green Manalishi. It was
Take on the World.
Take on the World, yeah.
Yeah.
And that was a hit in the UK, and we got on the top 10 with that singles charts. And then they took a second one off it, which was Evening Star.
Great song. I love that song.
That did pretty well too.
Two great albums, man. I'm thinking about it. These are like just Rob and the whole band was like firing off on all cylinders.
But if you go back and listen to those albums, call me old-fashioned, but I prefer the style of the music that they were doing then to, the later stuff that got more.
The Painkiller you're talking about?
Painkiller is a great track. Don't get me wrong.
It is. Yeah. No.
Great drum intro on that.
Very exciter-ish.
Yeah. Well, Scott.
Yes.
KK told me he listened to a solo that Scott did on Racer X, which is another one of his bands, and there was something like that in the solo, and he said, "Play that as the intro," So anyway, I think if you look at the 80s period with Dave Holland. And the album they recorded with him,
A British Steel, Screaming for Vengeance.
There several singles taken off that album, which were hits for them.
Yep.
Breaking the Law, Living After Midnight.
Yeah.
Straight ahead rock, not speed metal. No double bass drums at 1,000,000 miles an hour, but quite commercial. There were hit records for the band, That album did very well.
I know Martin Popoff will agree with you. I mean, he was he's written about it. He's a huge Judas Priest fan in your era and before. And then what he calls kind of like the dumbing down to hit the U.S. market for British Steel onwards,
Well, the 70s period was before MTV.
Yeah.
Right, big time. Yeah.
And so the emphasis was on getting American FM radio play. And it was kind of strange for us because when we arrived in America, we were playing tracks like Exciter and all that kind of stuff. And we were on the same show as REO Speedwagon, Fogat.
Yeah.
There you go.
It doesn't fit.
And all these other, so we stood out like a sore thumb, But these bands, and Foreigner, they were very commercially successful bands and got a lot of American FM radio play, and so that was very important to getting your music heard throughout the States, because America is such a vast country. You can be really big in one state and totally unknown in another.
Yeah.
And one of the first areas that we took to Judas Priest straight away was Texas, San Antonio.
San Antonio, yeah. Huge.
We were doing a tour there with a very, very hard-working band. I mean, there are some bands that stick their first album out. I'm thinking of
San Antonio, I would say Saxon.
No, Def Leppard.
Right. Def Leppard.
Yeah.
Oh, yes,
I mean,
yes.
Their first albums, just America loved them straight away.
Hello, America.
And then we were touring with UFO. And UFO, we went up to they were living up in Laurel Canyon in LA. And those guys were constantly, they were a British band who'd moved and relocated to America. And they were always on tour, a very hard-working band. Yeah. But their success came gradually, album by album, bit by bit. Mm-hmm. Whereas, and the same with Priest, really. I mean, they had to work hard at it to get where they wanted to be. Whereas Def Leppard comes out, the first album goes, and Mutt Lange producing.
Yeah.
Young guys look good, it's a little different.
TV era.
Yeah.
Exactly. Shania Twain is another one. He produces her, and I think Brian Adams.
Yeah.
You can always tell his production,
Yeah.
But he knows how to make hit records.
Yeah.
I'm getting a lot of so there's a chat going on here too, Les, and people are asking all kinds of questions, and we're I don't want to ignore everybody, but one person asks, I'll throw out some questions at you, okay? And you could just answer if you want, answer if you don't want.
Sure.
Short, brief. What do you think about the new KK song? I guess, since you didn't participate, what do you think about it? It's got that Painkiller vibe. What's your thoughts?
Well, I've only seen it on an iPhone.
Hellfire.
Put the video out on an iPhone, and it's very, it's very all guns blazing. The video is very impressive, lots of effects and stuff. I haven't heard the entire album, and I don't think it's due for release until.
But it's okay. We won't push you for sound what it sounds like. But they haven't let you heard a little sneak peek of it or anything.
Uh, Early on, there were some early sort of just rough,
rough.
that was sent to me, but I didn't really get too heavily involved because I knew I wasn't going to be playing on it,
Oh, okay.
And I'm a lazy bastard, so if I'm not going to be actually playing on it, but.
And if I'm not getting paid,
yeah. So I've only just probably what you've seen of it is what I've seen of it,
So did you like it? What were your impressions? How's that?
Yeah, I liked it. Yeah, and I wish them every success with it.
For sure.
I spoke to KK earlier on this year when they were just putting that video together, getting and it was very difficult because. Rippers in America,
yeah,
and so it's there were no flights to the UK. Hard getting restrictions on foreign travel because of the COVID, and so getting everybody together, it was always a problem. So I'm not sure how they got around all that. Maybe they all contributed to in whatever part of the world they were in and sort of stuck it together, But I mean, it opens up with KK's trademark whammy bar.
I love the song. I love the song actually.
Well,
I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, that opened up something similar to that. Opened up The Sinner, which is one of the tracks that I liked playing. And I do that with my own band actually, The Sinner.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
It was also on Unleashed in the East.
Yeah.
So that song is from sort of my era with the band.
Did they redo any of the drums on Unleashed East? Because the vocals, we know it's common knowledge that they had to redo the vocals, but was any drums or any other songs like rebuilt from scratch?
I hear this comment. I hear this comment. There's a lot of rubbish that's spoken about. I think they so it was Unleashed in the Studio.
Yes.
No, which is complete bollocks. As I say, the drums are entirely live, and I never even set foot in the studio.
Because they weren't paying you.
So my part, I can clarify, is totally live.
Live. So we know we've confirmed Les Binks was recorded live. Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, and also you see nowadays, when that album was released in the 70s, we didn't have quantizing and stuff that we, with the technology that's around, digital technology and computers and so on, you can control everything more in a studio. You have auto-tune. So if a vocalist sings sharp or flat, you can bring it back up, retune the voice digitally, It's not, it's a cheating really, But, a lot of these boy bands and girl bands, half of them can barely sing, but they get away with it in the studio because of these triggers that can make them sound better than they are. But the Unleashed in the East album was entirely live. I think when we did the shows, Rob had a problem. He had a cold or something affecting his throat.
That's what I read. Yeah.
And so when they went into this, when they went into the studio, I mean, no matter which band you think of that's had a live album, think of Thin Lizzy, Live and Dangerous. Yeah. they don't just oh yeah, just stick it out, you know. They want it to sound well mixed, and if anything needs an effect on it, you know, a vocal effect or a bit more reverb on that, or a bit more echo.
But not Kiss though. Kiss, it's all live. I hear all their albums are right live. There's no mixing there. There's no studio.
Yeah, so
Kiss is always live.
Yeah. So obviously, with the Unleashed in the East album, I think they redid some of the vocals, probably not all of it, but anything that Rob felt his voice wasn't on top form on, he would have redone in the studio. But I would say the majority of it is totally live.
Okay, good. You know, Les, when me and Alan do these shows, it's a more of a sit back, relax, talk casual. You know, we're very, and we're not, when we make little jokes, we're just joking around. You know, we're just having, we're trying to make it feel
It's funny because Live and Dangerous too was Brian Downey's tracks. They said that's, you know, there's rumors that that's the only thing that's really kept live, and you're saying your tracks are always is definitely live as well. So
yeah,
Live and Dangerous.
All I'm saying is, with any live album, the band always polishes it up in the studio.
Yeah,
you know, they want to get the best out of that live performance, and so you know, they'll just polish it up in the studio and make sure there's a good mix and everything can be heard properly, and so they're getting the best out of it.
Right. Well, I think it's getting late there, and I think we took up a lot more time than we originally planned, but it was a great interview, and we thank you a lot, Les, for joining us, and hopefully, like you said, you'll be out touring in June if everything goes according to plan.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
So Les Binks, the Les Binks Priesthood, which is basically covering the 3 albums you played on, right, with Judas Priest. Hopefully we get to see you with KK's Priest, some special guests. I mean, we'll see how that comes about, right?
Well, that's what KK suggested to me, you know.
Okay.
And that'd be easier to do in the UK, obviously, because we all live in the UK, you know.
I was looking forward to seeing you. I was looking forward to seeing you with KK's Priest. That's why I'm just, you know, look, I'm a fan, so I was looking forward to seeing you. That's all I'm saying.
I was looking forward to seeing me too. Well, seeing me now, that's the main thing.
There you go. There you go. There you go. Now you're catching on to these shows.
Yeah.
Les, it was a pleasure.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll do it again soon.
Anytime.
All the best. Stay well.
Hold on.